Have you ever watched Bluey and thought, okay, why is this hitting harder than it should? Like seriously, you sit down thinking you're about to watch a harmless kids cartoon, and next thing you know, you're emotionally invested. Sometimes you're laughing, sometimes you're weirdly quiet, and sometimes you're just staring at the screen thinking, wow, why did that feel so real? And the thing is, that didn't happen by accident. What most people don't realize is that Bluey didn't slowly become this way over time. It didn't start off loud and chaotic and then magically mature later. It started different from the very first episode. And once you understand that, a lot of things about the show suddenly make sense. So let's talk about the very first Bluey episode ever aired. Not just what we all watched, but what almost happened instead. Because the gap between those two versions explains why Bluey became what it is. Instead of just another kids show, you forget about 5 minutes later. The first official episode of Bluey is called Magic Xylophone. And if you just hear that title, it sounds kind of basic, right? A magic toy. Classic kids TV setup. You already think you know where this is going. Two kids find a toy that can freeze their dad. They mess around with it, they laugh, they push it too far. That's the whole plot. No big twist, no dramatic arc, no villain of the week. And honestly, that's kind of the point, because Magic Xylophone isn't trying to impress you. It's not trying to show off. It's quietly telling you what kind of show this is going to be. Bluey and Bingo discover that the xylophone has power. Every time they play it, Bandit freezes completely, mid-step, mid-word, mid-face. And at first, it's funny, like genuinely funny, and it feels accurate. This is exactly how kids would react if they suddenly realized they could control a grown-up. They test it, they giggle, they experiment, they enjoy being in charge. And honestly, let's be real for a second. If you were a kid and you found a toy like that, you'd do the same thing. Bluey never judges that curiosity. It never frames it as bad. But then something small happens that changes the entire tone. They forget about him. Not in a cruel way, not in a villain way, just in a very realistic kid way. They get distracted, they move on, they're having fun, and Bandit is still frozen. Now, this is where most kids' shows would go loud. The dad would suddenly unfreeze and yell, or chase them, or turn it into a big slapstick moment with exaggerated reactions. And honestly, that version would have been fine. But Bluey doesn't do that. When Bandit finally unfreezes, he doesn't explode, he doesn't punish, he doesn't even really lecture. He talks about how it felt. And this is where the show quietly tells you, hey, this is going to be different. Because instead of saying, you shouldn't do that, he says, this is how that made me feel. And that moment right there, that's the entire show in a nutshell. And here's the wild part. That moment almost didn't exist. Early versions of Bluey were way closer to traditional kids' cartoons. Faster pacing, louder humor, clear lessons spelled out at the end so nobody missed the point. Bandit, in early concepts, leaned more toward the stereotypical dad role. Stricter, more reactive, more authority-driven, and to be fair, that version would have worked. It would have aired. It would have been fine. Kids would have watched it, but it wouldn't have stuck. Somewhere in development, the creators realized something felt off. The show was entertaining, but it wasn't honest enough. It didn't reflect how families actually work, how kids actually learn, how real conversations actually sound. So instead of speeding things up, they slowed everything down. They cut noise. They allowed silence. They trusted the audience to pick up on emotional cues without being spoon-fed. And you can feel that decision immediately in Magic Xylophone. When Bandit explains how being frozen felt, it's not dramatic, it's not heavy-handed, it's calm, it's matter of fact, almost casual. And that's what makes it hit. Because Bluey doesn't teach kids what to think. It teaches them how to notice feelings, both their own and other people's. And honestly, that's kind of bold for a first episode. Most shows try to hook kids with energy and constant stimulation. Bluey hooks them with connection. And here's something you might not consciously notice, but your brain definitely does. Magic Xylophone has quiet moments, real quiet, no dialogue, no music telling you how to feel, just stillness. That stillness is doing a lot of work. It gives kids time to process what's happening, and it gives adults room to recognize themselves in the situation. That's why Bluey feels personal in a way most kids' shows don't. The original version of this episode moved faster. The jokes landed quicker. The message was clearer and louder. The final version chose something harder. It chose emotional realism. Instead of explaining the lesson, it lets you experience it. And once that choice was made, it shaped everything that came after. Think about the episodes people talk about the most. Sleepy Time, Baby Race, Camping, Onesies. All of them follow the same formula introduced right here. Simple setup, emotional truth, no over-explaining. That structure only works because the show trusts its audience, and that trust starts in episode 1. Bandit's character is a huge part of that. He's not perfect, he messes up, he gets tired, he gets distracted, but he's present, he listens, he models emotional awareness instead of control. And that version of Bandit wasn't designed to be some perfect parenting role model. He feels real. That's why so many adults connect to him, or see parts of themselves in him, or see the parent they're trying to be. Bluey never tries to be educational in the traditional sense. It doesn't hand out rules, it doesn't end episodes with speeches. It shows moments. Moments where nobody is completely right or wrong. Moments where learning happens quietly without anyone announcing it. And that approach starts with Magic Xylophone. A toy that represents power, a moment where that power is misused, and a conversation that reframes the situation through empathy instead of punishment. That's not accidental, that's intentional storytelling. And it's why Bluey feels timeless instead of trendy. The creators could have gone louder, they could have gone safer, they could have followed the formula that works for dozens of other shows. Instead, they chose restraint. They chose honesty. They chose to believe that kids are capable of understanding emotional nuance and that parents are capable of recognizing themselves in small, quiet moments. That belief shaped everything. The first episode wasn't just a pilot, it was a promise. A promise that the show would respect children's emotions instead of talking down to them. A promise that family life would be shown as it actually feels, not as it's supposed to look. A promise that play isn't just entertainment, it's communication. If the original version of Bluey had aired, the show might have blended into the background of kids' TV. Cute, sure, but forgettable. Instead, it became something people hold on to, something parents recommend to each other, something adults watch even when kids aren't around, something that quietly reshapes how people think about childhood and connection. And all of that started with a xylophone, not because it was magical, but because the show chose empathy over noise. That's why Bluey feels different. And that difference was decided in the very first episode. And honestly, once you see that, you start noticing it everywhere. Bluey doesn't rush. It doesn't shout for attention. It doesn't assume its audience needs to be told what to feel. It trusts you to get there on your own. And that trust is rare, especially in kids' television. So the next time you watch Bluey, especially Magic Xylophone, pay attention to what isn't being said, the pauses, the quiet, the moments where nothing happens. Because those moments are doing more work than any loud joke ever could. And if you enjoyed this deep dive and want more breakdowns of Bluey's hidden storytelling choices, emotional layers, and behind-the-scenes decisions, stick around. There's a lot more hiding in plain sight.